Davis steps under center. Gibson and McClendon behind him. Davis with motion by Richard. Will give the ball to McClendon. He leaps. Oh, he doesn't get in. He fumbled the football. Carolina holds. The game is over. And Carolina has won the game.
Finley to throw. Over the middle, intercepted. Wolford again. Wolford the other way at the 30, the 40. Wolford to midfield. Miles Wolford with the pick. The heels on the doorstep of an enormous victory.
Left side of the line. Hood standing to Williams' right. Williams going to throw. One-on-one. Davis has it. Touchdown. Carolina wins. Carolina is the Coastal Division champion. Bernard fields it at the 26. Heading to the far side. Gio at the 35. Gio is at the 50. No, he's not. Yes, he is. Gio is going to take it for a touchdown. Are you kidding me? Connor Barth for the possible win. Snap, spot, kick away, high enough, long enough. It's good! It's good! Carolina has won the game on a 42-yard field goal by freshman Connor Barth. Good gosh, dirty!
This is the Heel Tough Blog Podcast. Hey guys, and welcome in to another edition of the Heel Tough Vlog Podcast. It's Anthony Pagnotta back with you guys as always, and the quarantine interview series continues as we go back in time once again, this time to the 1990s, and we get to talk to one of, if not the most successful defensive lineman to ever put on a Carolina uniform, and it's Greg Ellis who is stopping by with us. And first of all, Greg, still going through all the COVID-19 stuff. We're not out of the clear just yet, so I like to start by asking just how everybody's doing in your family, including yourself. You guys been taking care during this time?
Yeah. Thanks for asking. But thank God we're doing well. We just doing the best we can do, dealing with the changes that we have to make in order to keep moving forward. We have 3 kids, and so it's different because it's forced to do online schooling, and so we're just taking it all in stride.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's definitely a new time, and, it seems like just from the press conference that we heard today from Mack Brown that things are starting to seem a little bit positive, and that's good to see. And, Mack Brown's still got that good energy that everybody likes to see. This is not something that's gotten him down, and, you got to kind of experience that firsthand, and I'm kind of interested to see how you feel just from a recruiting standpoint, because Carolina has done so well on the recruiting trail here in the 2021 class. A lot of in-state guys have committed to Carolina so far. And one of the things that I've heard a lot just from talking to some of the former guys is that with Mack Brown, there's just a different feel when he comes in and recruits you. For a guy that was an in-state prospect, did you kind of get that same feeling from him that his connection to you was just different than the other coaches that you talked to?
Definitely. Coach Brown understands the importance of family. I mean, you see, going from high school to college is not like going from college to the NFL. I mean, there's still an adjustment period, but it's certainly a huge difference. And so Coach Brown understands that we have to make these parents feel comfortable. If they don't feel comfortable, then odds are their son, they're not going to let them come here to play football. Now, they can say it's up to the kid, but, the parents, what they think weighs heavily into that decision, whether they go to your school or not go to your school. So Coach Brown really understands that, and Coach Brown understands the importance of winning in your own state. You see, every state has good football players coming out of high school, but it's something about that when you establish and become that college that the kids in your state want to go to, that's when you got something special brewing. And when we were in college, that's what we had. I mean, we don't get me wrong. He did recruit Omar Brown. We had some kids that came from out of state, but he certainly understood the importance of making sure these local guys who are talented enough to be here, let's make sure they want to come here.
Well, I think, yeah, you talked about, him going out of state and getting a guy like Omar Brown. I think one of the things that people have to realize is that what you want to do is by getting some of these in-state guys, building a good core and a good group of guys that really sort of know each other and can communicate with each other well, it really helps when you have those types of guys that can help you to go out, especially in this social media era, and get these guys from the other state and tell them, look, we're a really close group. You want to be a part of this instead of going to a school that, has guys that are just kind of spaced out all over the country, don't really know each other, but are just going there to kind of team up, and they might meet each other the first time on their official visit sometime in the fall. So I think you could see that kind of working out, and that's pretty cool how, it's kind of lining up very similar to the 90s, and I think that's what's very exciting. And one of the things that should be really exciting for people about that, I mean, you mentioned a guy like Omar Brown, and he was part of those defenses with you that were some of the best in program history. As someone who played on those defenses, did you know that you were part of something special at the time, or was that something that really didn't hit you until after you got off campus?
I tell you what, man, our group, I'm speaking for the kids who got there in 1993. We were freshmen in 93. And Coach Brown and his staff decided to redshirt the entire class. The closest guy that came close to playing that year was a receiver by the name of Octavius Barnes. He dressed him a couple games, didn't let him play, but finally he said, okay, we're going to redshirt all of them. And all of us redshirted. And I remember when, we were sitting in study hall one day, Jeff Saturday, Omar, Brian Simmons, K. Mays, all those guys, we were sitting in study hall because all the freshmen had to go to study hall. And I was a real quiet one, and I would sit there and listen to them. And they were projecting how good we were going to be as a football team. They went through every position, and they were including us as if we were, going to go on the field and play, but we were just freshmen. And so the expectations that we had on ourselves was really high. And nobody wanted to let anybody down. And so we had a really good team camaraderie to say, okay, I don't want to let Brian down. Brian don't want to let Kay down. Kay don't want to let Dre Blighter. So it was a real close-knit group that everybody stood up and said, I'm going to be a man, and I'm going to not let this team down. So that was to me, that was the magic that we had when we were there.
Well, that's a great mindset to take towards it, and I would hope that that's kind of the mindset that the guys on the team now are taking. And, of course, you, became one of the most decorated pass rushers in program history. It didn't take you long to make your impact starting in 94. But, look, you finished with the program record 32.5 sacks, and at the time that was the mark. That still stands today, even with guys like Julius Peppers and Kareem Martin who have tried to take runs at it. How special of that, is it an honor for you to still be the guy that holds that prestigious record even to this day?
To me, it is. I don't sit back and dwell on it all the time, anything like that. But, I think when you're blessed to accomplish something like that stands and people recognize it, I think, that's something to be happy and proud of. And now, obviously, we had to have some good coverage going on on the secondary. Right. And a lot of times, Bonnie Holiday was flushing those quarterbacks my way. But, it's as they say, it's always a team award. And so, I thank God I'm blessed to be the sack leader, but realizing that, the team is what helped Greg Ellis get there, not just Greg Ellis by himself.
Well, you talk about a team. Look, I watched the game that they replayed last night from the 1994 season, and then once you got into, of course, 95, 96, and 97, the latter two, which were some historic defenses. But, you played around so many great guys. There were definitely some guys that got overshadowed. When you think about, the most underrated player on that team, who is the guy that comes to your mind? Because I know that I've got a guy that when I look at those 90s defenses, I always talk about. Who do you think of when you talk about the most underrated guy on those defenses?
Man, you know what? I got a couple. One guy that was, he got drafted and did, I think, okay in the NFL, and that's a cornerback by the name of Robert Williams. We called him Quick because Drake came in and was catching everything that came his way for his interceptions.
Right.
Quick, we call him Quick. Like I said, Robert was he may have been actually a better cover corner than Dre was, but Dre would take chances and gamble quarterbacks into throwing his way, where Robert was just on his guy so tight, quarterbacks wouldn't even go his way. And then when he had a chance to make an interception, a lot of times he wouldn't come up with the football, but he would bat it down. That was one guy. Another guy that was, and we had several of them in my opinion, but two that stands out. A guy by the name of Marcus Dow. Marcus was a good football player, and he got in there. He made things happen. He wasn't the biggest guy, so he wasn't that specimen that you look at and see a Ronnie Holiday. But to me, I think my vote would have to go to a guy who was in the '93 class, and that's a guy named Nate Hopgood-Chittick. Nate, his NFL career kind of showed that he was overshadowed while in college, because Nate not drafted. He was picked up as a free agent to St. Louis Rams at the time and played on some of those Super Bowl teams. And so he stuck around for several years with them, but wasn't even drafted and didn't start with us. So I think Nate, in my opinion, was the guy that I would say he really, kind of got overshadowed and kind of lost in there. But when he went in there, he did what he's supposed to do, made some plays here or there, a good teammate to be around, and had some talent, because it showed when he got into the NFL.
Yeah, there's a couple of guys that come to mind for me too. One of the guys that actually, when I was going through an off-season series that I'm doing, Keith Newman, the outside linebacker, really just kind of gets pushed behind guys like Brian Simmons, who we all just know was a fantastic athlete that could have probably played anywhere. I mean, he fits exactly that type of mold that we're going to start seeing some of the linebackers in today's game sort of be modeled after, and of course, one of the other guys that I just don't think gets talked about a lot, and you play with him on the defensive line, went on to have a good NFL career, is Ebenezer Ekuban. He was a guy that just, you talk about that defensive line. I mean, you got along with Marcus Jones, who you played with as well, and Vonnie Holiday. That was that starting line in that 94 game, and that I could not believe that was actually a group. But Ebenezer was that guy that came over from tight end and just never really got talked about a lot. I feel like probably you got a much better look at him and maybe thought a little bit differently of him than maybe some of us thought. But to me, definitely a guy that just wasn't talked about a whole lot.
Well, I agree with you. And as you know, Ebenezer and I think a year or two later, he gets drafted to come to the Dallas Cowboys as a first-round pick also. So I was blessed and fortunate to play college ball with Eb, and also to play NFL football with Eb with the Cowboys for several years. And so I would agree with you. Eb, he was a guy that came to playing football late in his high school career to start with. And then on top of that, like you said, he came in and was playing as a tight end, and the coaches asked him to move over to defensive end. So Eb had a lot of stuff to learn. And so Eb was like a sponge when, we were in college for soaking up how to play defensive ends and all of that kind of stuff. And so he was a huge talent, was faster than me and could run like a linebacker, and just really caught on really quick and just really excelled. But I think him moving over from tight end to defensive end, he didn't have that history of being known as a defensive end.
Right. So, you mentioned you got to play with them with the Dallas Cowboys. Of course, you were drafted there in 1998 with the 8th overall pick. How special was draft night for you? And I've got to ask you, what was it like to get that call from the man himself, Jerry Jones?
Man, it started the night before. The excitement of being a Dallas Cowboy, man. Jerry brings a whole lot of excitement. The franchise itself, the historical name Dallas Cowboy brings a whole lot of excitement in itself. And so, it was just that, night, day of the draft was really exciting, and Jerry and them, I think Jerry must stay up all night the night before the draft trying to see what's going on. And so Chicago, which they had the number 5 pick, they had the 5th pick. Somebody from Chicago called me. I think it was that night. Of course, it wasn't the team because they couldn't do it. Well, it was somebody affiliated with the team, but it wasn't the people telling them they're going to draft me. And so that day of draft day, Jerry get on the phone because he would want to trade down so he can get me at a higher pick and pay less money, obviously.
Right.
And so he said, Greg, has anybody called? And I told him, I said, well, somebody from Chicago called my mom's house last night. I said, I don't know what that was about, but I know my mom said somebody from Chicago called, and I didn't know anybody in Chicago at that time. And so I guess Jerry didn't want to take any chances, and he went on ahead and pulled the trigger and drafted me, man. And the rest is history. A great, fun career with the Cowboys. Played with some tremendous guys, Hall of Fame guys here with the Cowboys, and, just a good career.
Well, yeah, I mean, you mentioned it, just a phenomenal career, actually, in Dallas. I mean, an 11-year career there, able to rack up 75 tackles for loss, 77 sacks. Now, of course, the first year that you were there in 1999, they didn't keep the tackle for loss stats on the site that I looked at, so didn't want to mess that up, so we'll just leave it at that. But, I mean, Look, the latter of those still ranks third in franchise history. Only DeMarcus Ware, and I forget the other guy that's ahead of you in franchise history. But
a guy named by the name of Jim Jeff Cope.
That's right. Yeah. Those are the only 2 guys ahead of you. So really a historical career there. What were some of those memories really that stuck out for you in a time that, maybe wasn't as successful as the era right before you got there, but was still a relatively successful era for the Dallas Cowboys?
No, you're right. I mean, I remember, though, when I got drafted, I was in North Carolina in Durham, and we were, I got picked, and so the reporters and everybody was there, and somebody asked me, they said, what do you think about the Dallas Cowboys not making the playoffs this year? Because they didn't make it, the year before I got drafted.
Right.
And, man, they were winning so much in the early 90s that I remember telling the reporter, I said, man, they're the Dallas Cowboys. They're going to bounce back. And so I 100% believe that. And so we didn't win any or play in any Super Bowl games when I was my tenure in Dallas, but I just wouldn't imagine that would have happened. But, you got to take what you got. And like you said, we had some good seasons, definitely had some good defenses. One year we were number 1 in the league. And so we had some good teams, good relationships. Enjoyed my time there, learned a lot there. One of the several memories, one that stood out the most, well, I wouldn't say the most, but one that stood out a lot was my second year, and we were playing Arizona. And so they're about on our 2-yard line, and they driving in to score. And so it's a big pile up. We tackle them, and the ball comes out. Well, I grabbed the ball, and it's like nobody from Arizona knew the ball was on the ground. Our safety by the name of Darren Woodson pulls my arm and telling me, Greg, get up, nobody touched you. And so, as you know, you can pick up a fumble if nobody touched you and get up and move with it. And so, man, I got up and took off running and was blessed, and I really mean that word, blessed, to make it 98 yards for a touchdown. Now, I'm dying and I'm tired, man.
Yeah.
But the killer part, so I'm huffing and puffing. I get to the sideline. Troy Aikman comes over, the quarterback. Troy comes over. Troy said, Greg, you make sure you enjoy this, man, because, as a defensive lineman, this probably will never happen to you again in your career.
Right.
Well, the next game, we're playing another home game. The very next game, we're playing Atlanta Falcons. And the quarterback throws, they're probably on maybe our, 13 or something like that, yard line. So he throws just what we call a screen pass.
Right.
And man, it was like he didn't even see me. He threw it right to me. I catch it and run it in for an 87-yard touchdown. Now, I'm tired, but I remember what Troy told me, and I went and found him this time, and I said, Troy, I thought you said it would never happen again. And he looked at me with hesitation, and then he busted out laughing. So that was a fun memory to have him say it never happened again, and it happens the very next time. And one thing that stood out about that, too, that was very ironic, as you know, my football number in college was 87,
right?
Jersey number, and that interception was for an 87-yard return. My pro number with the Cowboys was 98, and that fumble return was a 98-yard fumble return. So that stood out, and will forever continue to stand out with me.
That is a phenomenal story. And there's, showing up Aikman. That's always fantastic. As you know, look, I'll admit this. Most people on the show know this from how long I've been doing it. I am a Giant fan. I do have to admit that. But we do have kind of a cool connection because you got the opportunity to play under Bill Parcells, who did coach the Giants and got to coach another pass rushing great that went to Carolina as well in Lawrence Taylor and really helped him to become the guy that he is. What was it like to play under Bill Parcells? Because I feel like he was probably still very similar to that guy that we saw, but, for Dallas fans, it just doesn't seem like there's as much love for Bill as there is amongst Giant fans. What was your experience under him like that?
Bill came in with and he told us, he came in with that nobody took football serious, other than the owners, of course. Right. But for his players, he was like, man, these guys they're too, like to say, fat and happy kind of guys and really not hungry to be good in football and all that stuff. But the thing, after a couple of months him being there and after, him seeing how hard we worked in training camp and practices, he told us, he said, guys, I thought nobody here was serious about football and, really didn't care about winning or losing. He said, but since I've been here a couple of months, I changed. He said, I know several of you guys are serious and you really want to win and go to the Super Bowl. And so I appreciate that. And so when Bill comes, nobody is a Bill Parcells guy. Right. He's against everybody, and you have to earn that. Now, you don't earn that by trying to say, hey, coach, look at me. But, when you think he's not watching, he's watching. And that's when you're earning it. You're not even know you're earning his trust and earning his respect. But before Bill left there, he had a lot of guys that he had a lot of respect for, and a lot of guys, including myself, had a bunch of respect for him as well. And I wish Bill would have stayed. Him and Jerry would have worked it out for one more year because, personally, I think that would have been the year that we would have went and won the Super Bowl because Wade Phillips came in that year after Bill was fired, released, whatever they did, right. But was no longer there. And we went 13-3. Probably, I think that's still the best record the Cowboys have ever had, I think. Mm-hmm. And we lose in the second round because we had a bye against Arizona. No, we had a bye, and we played Arizona, and we lose to them in that first round, I believe it was. Right. And so, that no, I'm wrong. We played you guys. That was the year.
Oh, yeah. That's right. That's right.
You guys won the Super Bowl because we beat you guys twice, and you guys had to come to us because remember y'all went on the road to win the Super Bowl.
Right. Went and beat Tampa and then played you guys the next week. Yep. I remember that. Yeah, I remember that as a kid. Yeah, definitely, probably not one of your best moments, but or best memories. But yeah, no, I mean, I think honestly that would have been very interesting because I think you guys probably would have been somewhere around because I remember that team. That was an absolutely loaded team. At the time, pretty much everybody thought that Tony Romo was going to be one of the next great guys that kind of came out of nowhere, very similar to Brady and. We could get into all sorts of talks about Romo and everything because I'm the lone Giant fan out there that thinks he should be in the Hall of Fame and all this and that. But I remember that team very well, and I think you're right. I wonder if you had Bill Parcells there, a guy that had been there and done that, made Super Bowl runs. I think Wade Phillips is a phenomenal coach. I mean, he's a guy that I remember Coach Brown saying during his press conference on Monday has talked to the team, and really I think from your perspective was probably a guy that really helped you a lot because he was such a defensive-minded guy. But I would think I wonder if it would have been very different. But I mean, let me
throw something.
Right? Yeah, go ahead.
I love Wade. It's not bashing Wade.
Right.
Wade
was
a good coach, but the team was made up of Bill Parcells pieces, if you would. And so Jerry allowed Bill to put the team together the way he wanted to put it together. And so I think, they would have one more year with Bill. I think things would have been a little different. Now, like you can't argue with 13-3. We just had a wrong week to have an off week, if you would, when we played New York. And New York, they did a great job. They had to beat other teams other than us.
Right.
But I just still think if we would have had Bill, I think it would have been a little different, and not because Wade is a bad guy, but I think Bill is a long strategic coach, long-term, big vision strategic coach, and I think we was right at the finish line to be able to eat the pie if he was able to stay that last year. But we had a great year with Wade as well, as you know.
Right. I wouldn't change anything about it. Also, if those two had met, I think that the amount of shouting between both Tom and Bill in that game would have been unbelievable, because those are two of the angriest coaches that I have ever seen in my entire life. But both guys are phenomenal. It's awesome. I am assuming that Bill and Mac were a little bit different. Bill always seemed very angry. Mac seemed very enthusiastic on the sidelines, but Bill always seemed very angry on the sideline. Was that kind of how Bill seemed, or was Bill maybe more energetic than we thought? It was just he always looked kind of angry.
He was. Sometimes he was what you saw. Sometimes he was just like that. Mean, you know what? And sometimes, he would crack a joke with you and all that kind of stuff. But Bill kept it real, and it was no doubt that he understood and wanted us to understood that you guys are grown men, and the NFL is about winning and losing, and we got to win. And we win, hey, it's a much better time. We lose, stuff got to change.
Right. So, I mean, you leave the Cowboys in 2008. You finish up your career in 2009 with the Raiders. And since then, you've been doing a lot of really great stuff off the field. I know that you've helped in some movie production of the movie Carter High, and you've also done some work as a playwright. How has post-NFL life been treating you, and how did you get into the movie and playwright sort of area?
Man, in college, I majored in communication. And the type of communication I majored in led me to take a lot of theater classes. And so I really developed a love for theater and film, and especially theater for its stage plays there in college. And so when I got the opportunity, when I finished playing, I wanted to do something to help people. And I think one of the best ways we can help each other is through entertainment. If I can put a positive message, and positive message doesn't mean you're going to laugh all the time,
right,
but a positive message that would allow you to grow and to become a better person. If I can put a message like that in front of you and entertain you at the same time, you're going to retain that information that's in that message. And so that's what I do. That's what I enjoy doing. And that's, I'm set back some now.
Right.
Because of the whole coronavirus, because we had plays booked for this summer that we had to cancel. But it certainly is an opportunity to reach even more people, because I was approached about live streaming the production for this summer. And so we have a recording of it. It's not the best recording of it, but, everything is clear. People can see each other. People can hear each other. And so we're going to live stream that pre-recording of our Juneteenth play. And so whereas when we do it live, you only limit it to how many people can get in that auditorium.
Right.
But by streaming it, it's endless up to people if they want to go there and purchase the pass to be able to see it. So if I can give a little plug for Greg Ellis, if whoever hears this, man, please go to Juneteenth, the play. .com. It's just Juneteenth. Juneteenth is a time where here in Texas, the Emancipation Proclamation went into effect 1863, New Year's Day, which was supposed to free the slaves throughout the country. Texas, being Texas, is going to do things their way, continue to practice slavery for 2.5 additional years. And so our Play, and then a guy named General Granger sailed into Galveston, Texas, and made the announcement that, hey, Texas, you have to free your slaves, and that's when they did it. It took place on June 19th, 1865. That's why it's called Juneteenth. So they can go to JuneteenthThePlay.com and click the ticket button. Please get a ticket. The show takes place, the live stream takes place June the 20th of this year. I think it's 8:30 Eastern time. So please get a ticket. It only costs $10. So just want to encourage about everybody to go get that ticket, learn some history, and it's going to be funny. I'm in there making a fool of myself in a very comical kind of way, but everybody else are professional actors.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great, man. Juneteenth.com. Make sure you guys go and check that out. Yeah, that's great. And, that's
Juneteenth, not Juneteenth.com. It's Juneteenth the Play.
JuneteenthThePlay.com. Excuse me. There you go. Okay. It's good because, during this time, I mean, we definitely need some positivity in our lives with everything that's been going on. So that's awesome. We'll definitely make sure to check that out. And, of course, anytime that any former players or anything have a chance to shout something out like that, it's always awesome because, we're definitely look to help you guys out. And, Gretton, getting to see you acting, I think that is something that everybody can get on board with, even probably Mac Brown. I think he'll be locked in to watch that as well.
Yeah.
So, hey, Greg, thanks so much for joining us, man. This was fantastic. It was awesome getting to catch up with you, talk about your career and some guys that, of course, we all love, both at the college and NFL level. So make sure you stay safe during all of this. We're still, we're starting to see some restrictions get lifted, but it's still a time where we need to be a little cautious. But we look forward to being able to see and keep up with everything that you're doing with the play coming up. And, of course, we hope to talk to you down the line, man. So stay safe right now, and we'll talk to you, okay?
Okay, thank you. Take care.
All right.
All right, bye-bye.
All right, so that is former Tar Heel defensive lineman Greg Ellis stopping by with us. All right, again, JuneteenthThePlay.com is where you can go to check out everything that he's going to be doing this upcoming summer. That sounds like a really exciting event, and we're going to hopefully we'll be able to give him a little bit of publicity with that and get him a chance to get a few viewers on there. That's a pretty cool thing that they're doing there, and really interesting story that you guys will be able to watch. Again, we'll probably share some things on our page. Make sure you check that out at Heel Tough Blog on Facebook. That's the page handle. Same thing on Twitter at Heel Tough Blog. And of course, for me, you can follow me at HTB Anthony on Twitter. Right now, we encourage you, of course, to go to the website, HeelToughBlog.com. We've got you covered with all sorts of great stuff on the website. I'm actually going to put this one out. I'm going to move this one up because we've got some things that I talked about in there, and I do want to give you guys a little bit of an insight on what we heard from Mac Brown on Monday. This podcast will come out on Friday. I'm going to put this out. So you will be hearing this somewhat relatively close to when we heard from Mac Brown. And so, of course, he did have his press conference. It was a virtual press conference on Monday, but things are looking somewhat positive, at least from what he has told us. Now, he did say that he is not trying to get involved into any of the major decisions. He's heard some rumors about them going regional, something that now seems like it's going to be a possibility with the West Coast pretty much saying that they're off limits until next year. That's pretty much what we're hearing. Of course, LA County extended their stay-at-home order for 3 months, which would go pretty close to the college football season, would mean that teams would probably not be able to get back onto the field until mid to late August. And of course, we don't know if they would consider that enough prep time to get ready for the season. And then, of course, there were a couple other schools in California that have already said that they will not be playing sports or sending kids to school on campus during the fall semester. So that's a big blow for everybody that's hoping that college football gets underway on time or at all during the 2020 season. But they did say, and it seems like the NCAA is kind of on board with this, they will allow teams to play regionally if it works out that they are able to allow those teams to play, and the other schools do agree to let those schools go on and play their seasons without them. Luckily for Carolina, Carolina, as of right now, they do not have a West Coast trip this season, so they don't have to worry about playing any of the teams out west right now. It looks like they're pretty safe. Everybody on their schedule still seems to be sort of looking towards playing in 2020 now. The thing is again, we've talked about it so many times with them potentially cutting the schedule down, moving it to the spring. Again, Mac Brown addressed those in his press conferences. He says that he doesn't have any extra information. He says that as of right now, he's kind of just rolling with the punches. Everything that he's hearing from Bubba Cunningham, he's just kind of rolling with, and that feels like what he's going to be doing for the rest of the time. He said that he's feeling somewhat positive that Carolina will be on the field for the 2020 season. He did say that the coaches will be returning on June 15th. That's at least the plan. And then from there, they would try to get the players back on campus sometime in early July and open up fall practice, sometime in August. So it still looks like this is a possibility. The thing right now to do is just keep a positive mindset. Right now, it seems like the social distancing has worked. We don't know if there will be another period coming up where we are going to have to go back through that again. We hope not, of course, but you just really don't know. The thing you should do right now is just continue to listen to your local officials on what you're supposed to do. And as of right now, just keep that positive mindset. We'll get more and more updates as we go along throughout the summer. But Mac Brown said that his Monday morning press conference, or said his Monday morning meeting, with the staff went very well. There was a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of positivity. So it feels like Mac Brown is definitely starting to become a little more positive about the fact that this season could get underway. Of course, he touched on some other stuff as well. Most of it was just focused on the COVID-19 stuff, but he did also answer some questions about the name, image, and likeness stuff. We're going to have an article going up on the website about that later tonight. It'll be up whenever this podcast comes out, so you guys can go and check that out on the website. So make sure you do that. We got some other great recruiting stuff. Our weekly storylines are packed with great recruiting news, and we're going to have another one coming out later on this week. I don't even know if we're going to make it a week with all of these huge commitments that are coming up. There are so many things going on the recruiting trail right now. It seems like a lot of guys maybe have come to that conclusion that they're not going to have a chance to get on campus to a lot of these places that they want to go to. So they're going to have to make their decision now. And a lot of guys are starting to go ahead and go through with that. We've got you covered with all of that on HeelToughBlog.com. That's your place for all the latest recruiting news. You can go on there, check all that stuff out. We've got you covered, and of course we've got you covered for everything as we lead up to the season. More news on whether or not the team will take the field, and once we find out if they're going to take the field, we'll have all the previews for you. We'll have the position previews. That's coming up later on, and of course right now we've still got the off-season series going on. So make sure you check that out. Greatest players to ever wear each jersey number. We're going from 1 to 99. That's really cool. 1 through 10 is up as well. As actually later on today, from when this podcast will be published, you'll be able to check out the 11 through 20. That'll be a fun one as well. So make sure you go through, check out all of those, HeelToughBlog.com. For the podcast, make sure that you go through, if you could, rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. That would be great. Rating and reviewing just kind of helps us to move up the ranks so that fellow Tar Heel fans can find the podcast. They can listen to this great interview with Greg Ellis. They can listen to all the other great interviews with guys just as recent as Jake Lawler, who just finished up his career at Carolina this year and is getting ready to head out to LA to pursue a film career whenever that is possible for him. And then even goes back into the early 2010 era, into the late 2000s era with DeWanta Williams, as well as so many other great interviews. Make sure you guys go check that out. There's other great ones that are still going to be going up as well. A lot of historic guys that we haven't talked to just yet, or that you haven't heard just yet, but that we've already talked to. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the feed so you can get that in your podcast library whenever we do end up posting that. So once again, want to thank Greg Ellis for stopping by. Want to thank you guys for listening. We encourage you to continue to listen to your local officials. Stay safe during this time. Hopefully football season is right around the corner, but even if it's not, as always, go Tar Heels!